In this lesson, we're going to talk about motion graphics, but more specifically, we're going to start off with how to work with text within After Effects. In After Effects, you can create a text layer, and it works just like any other layers in After Effects, where you can adjust the position, apply effects, use it to key things out, key images out, etc. So it's very simple, and if you are used to working with any word processing software such as Microsoft Word, Google Docs, or any one of those, then you already have an idea of how to use the text tool. I just created a simple composition that's 1080p or 1920 by 1080 in terms of pixel, and our frame rate, we're sticking to 24 frames per second. And I just made my timeline, composition timeline 1 minute so that I have enough space to work with, even though our final animation will not be 1 minute. And I just gave it a background color of black because I'm going to have black background with white text or other colored text. So that's just a basic breakdown of my composition. So once we have our composition setting, we're going to hit OK, and we have to double click on our text composition so it will load up in case it doesn't load up in your After Effects window. So now that I have my whole composition, it's blank, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, and there's an option to bring up just the text panel so that you don't have to worry about all these other things going on here. I already have actually my text panel, but if you want to just work with text, you can go to Window, Workspace, Text, and what that will do is load up the text options so you can get your character, paragraph, and the effects because you can apply effects to your text. If you have used some kind of word processing program like Microsoft Word or Google Doc, then you will already be familiar with kind of like the text tool and what they do. But most of you all are also familiar with Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe Illustrator. So if you've worked with text in Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, it's pretty much the same thing. And you have a text tool here, or the type tool, I should say. And what this allows you to do, if you hold down on it, you can create horizontal type or vertical type. That's one way to create a text layer. So if I just take the text tool and click anywhere on my screen, it will create an empty text layer down here on your composition timeline window. So as a layer. So what I'm going to do is just directly type the text right onto the composition window monitor here. So I'm going to say tangent lines animation presents, and immediately you'll notice that the colors are a little weird, but who knows, maybe that's what I wanted. But if you want to adjust the colors, here's two ways of doing it. The easy way, when you want to adjust all the colors or all of the properties in that text, is just simply select the text layer that will highlight the text layer. By the way, if you don't see your handles here, you can make sure that this is on, toggle mask and shape path visibility. Make sure that's on, and then also make sure view, show layer controls is checked off, because if you don't have layer controls, then those things go away. So we want to go view, show layer controls. So those are two ways of looking at how to adjust while getting your handles and your motion paths and visibilities for your layer, and that applies to every layer as well. So just make sure your layer controls are on. And then with the text selected here, you can just simply go to your character option or your character panel and change your text. Now I want to go over some of your text option. And as I mentioned, it's very similar to all of your other Adobe products or even Microsoft Office and other word processing documents, where where once you select your layer, you can select the different colors, type, and other options. We'll go through these options in just a second, but I want to say a really important thing about text type in screen content. So what that means is basically your audience is basically going to look at your animation through screen, some kind of a screen, whether it's a television, monitor, or phone screen. But that's what your audience will look at your work through. So one of the things about screen is you want to aim for sans serif type fonts, and what that means is a font like Arial where there are no lines or anything. And in fact, Arial is like the most safest font to pick, but you can also, again, these are all kind of sans serif fonts that I'm showing you. This example right here, however, is a serif font. I'm going to turn off the stroke for a second. So let's get rid of the stroke. So anytime a font has these little things sticking out, these things are called serif. So that's why these are called serif font, S-E-R-I-F. Your most famous serif font is probably Times New Roman, but as I showed you just a second ago, an example. I'll type it in here. So this is Times regular, so it's got the serifs here. And there's actually a thing called Times sans serif, which gets rid of the serifs, and so it looks like this. So screen fonts, the more acceptable, the ones that are acceptable because they are easier to read, are really things like Arial and other types of block sans serif fonts, so they don't have those serifs next to it. So you want to make sure you want to use the right font. So I'm just going to go again, like I said, to Arial, and I'm going to go here and say up to fit up to 100%. And once I select my font, you can again choose the type of options for your font. You could do bold or regular. I'm going to go to regular actually for this one. And what I'm doing here is just creating that intro like Tangent Line Animation Presents, and then it'll go into the title. So with that layer selected again, I'm going to now just kind of go over the other options. You have your size. Obviously, that controls the size. You have your leading, which controls the spacing between the lines of text. You have your tracking, which basically is the lines between the characters of your text. And you have an options for stroke. So if you fill in this color, just like Adobe Illustrator, I'm going to just fill it in with a weird color just so you all can see it. So that's my stroke color. And you have the option of adjusting your stroke. Now I'm going to turn that stroke size a little lower, way lower, something like that. That looks kind of bad in terms of design because the colors are clashing, but it's okay. It's not, we're just doing this for demonstration purposes. Then you have the horizontal, or I should say the vertical length of your text, so you can adjust that, and the horizontal length of your text. Don't go too crazy on those because if your text gets hard to read, then it will not be good for your audience. Then you have your subscript. Now, if I select all of the text at once by clicking on that layer, if I select all of the text at once, it's going to just move the whole line of text. To see how this really works, be sure you're on your text tool. And if you just select a section of text, this is basically to control and create superscripts. Or you can go the other way and make subscripts. So like x to the power of 2 or something like that. And then finally, this is a weird thing. It's a sumi, and it's basically adjust the horizontal spacing a little bit finer between the individual text. So if you were in the old days doing typography and actually setting blocks of text to be printed, that's the blocks, the closer they are, the further they are, is the Sumi, T-S-U-M-I effect. And then you have your bold or faux bold and then italics, basically those things there. But then you have all caps option or option to make the first line of text bigger, and then just option to do subscript and superscript here instead of controlling it manually. I'm actually going to reset this to 0 pixels. And you can always reset things to the original by clicking on these tabs, or you can just go here and hit reset character. Go to this little hamburger menu here and reset character. And then, of course, you have your paragraph. You can adjust it to align left, where all your text are aligned to the left side, align middle, and align right. So I'm going to align this to the middle. And one of the things I want to show you, because we are animating this, so one of the things you have to remember first is to go to your pan behind or anchor point tool, so Y in your keyboard for the shortcut key. And I want to click and drag my anchor point, and I want to bring it to this specific handle right here. And in order to do that, if you click and drag, hold down Control or Command on the Mac or Control on the Windows PC, and it will want to snap to one of these corners or snap to a certain point. So while clicking and dragging, push down on Command or Control, and it will click. And we want it to be anchored around there. That way, if we want to rotate it, it rotates around that. And the main thing I want to do though is test the scale. I don't want it to scale from there. I kind of want it to scale from this side. So that's why we are controlling the or moving the anchor point. And then once you move the anchor point, I'm going to just scale it down, hit S for scale, and I'm going to put it kind of right around here.